are ready for our next candidate.
Please welcome Beto O'Rourke.
Bienvenidos.
Gracias, muchas gracias.
Tu casa es tu casa. 1 minute, and then we'll ask some questions.
Muy buenas tardes. So grateful to be with so many world-class educators here today in Texas. And to my friends from Texas especially, we are grateful for your public service. One of the neighborhoods that the great Sheila Jackson Lee represents in Congress is Kashmir Gardens, a neighborhood that has been hit by 3 500-year floods in just the last 5 years. Hurricane Harvey in 2017 was the worst of them. We showed up to that neighborhood time after time, and 1 year to the day, we saw 4 of the 5 libraries still shut down. We passed Kashmir Elementary, and I said, this has got to be a tough school. But Keith Downey, the neighborhood president, said, this is the bright spot in the neighborhood. Every child that walks in knows that he or she is in the right place because they get to be with world-class public school educators. I want to make sure that I have their back and show them the respect that they've earned and that they deserve. Thank you all for having us out. Gracias.
And you can stand or sit or whatever. I'm comfortable, so I'm just going to stay right here.
Follow your lead.
Yes, and we have a great website. I'm going to say it 32,000 times because I love it, strongpublicschools.org. We've invited all of our members to put up a video or ask a question on that site. This is a video question, you're going to see it right here, from Allison in New York.
All right.
My students face a wide array of problems that are somewhat unique to rural America. They are at the vortex of the opioid crisis. How will you ensure that my students and their community are heard in Washington once you get there?
Wow. Allison, thank you for the amazing question that you just asked, and perhaps picking up on where I left off at Kashmir Gardens Elementary. Those children of parents who are addicted to opioids, who have lived through so much trauma and suffering, which no child should have to experience, when they walk in that classroom, that teacher's gonna do everything within her power, within his power, to make sure that that kid is whole, not just providing world-class instruction, but so often out of her own pocket, paying for the supplies for that child, paying for that meal if they're on free and reduced breakfast and lunch and there's not a warm meal for them to look forward to at the end of the day, that teacher's gonna provide that meal. I've met teachers here in Texas who out of their own pocket will ensure when that child shows up day after day in the same pair of jeans, the same t-shirt, the same chones, she buys him a new set of clothes, knowing that his ability to learn is tied to his dignity and to his self-worth. So those teachers who make sure that they're there for those kids who are struggling in households that are riven by addiction and opioid abuse, I want to make sure that we've got their backs. And that means holding the pharmaceutical corporations that have produced this devastation accountable for what they have done. Without justice or accountability, we will continue to have impunity, and the 70,000 drug overdose deaths that we saw last year will continue unabated in this country. And now those parents, they need long-term treatment and recovery care. They are not a problem for the criminal justice system. Let us not put them behind bars. They are an opportunity for the public health system in this country. I want to make sure that we've got their backs as well. And then those teachers, those educators, struggling under these conditions, providing that kind of wraparound care for every child entrusted within their care. I want to make sure that they can focus on that job, that child in front of them, and not have to work a second or a third job, as so many do, especially here in Texas. That means the right to organize for every educator in every single state in this country. That means a living wage so that you don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. That means that we forgive 100% of your student loan debt if you're willing to dedicate your life to public service. And it means that we invest in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions to ensure that the teachers and the educators in those classrooms look like the students in front of them. Thank you, Allison, for the question.
Writing in this question is James, a social studies teacher in California. And James wants to know, what have you done to support unions?
James from California, thank you for the question. We've seen the devastation in our communities and in our states when unions are not allowed to organize. I was just in Iowa over the 4th of July and learned from those great educators in Iowa that after 2017, when the state legislature stripped their right to organize, their ability to use the leverage of the value that they provide in public education, no longer able to organize collectively for higher wages, better working conditions, and better delivery of care and instruction to children, those teachers and educators are leaving Iowa. Minnesota is seeing a bumper crop of physics teachers and chemistry teachers and kindergarten teachers paid for by the taxpayers of Iowa. So as president, I want to make sure that we guarantee the right to organize for every educator and public servant in every state in the union, including in Iowa and right here in Texas. I want to make sure that I follow the lead that unions have set to guarantee that you can take time off to spend that with your family without penalty and paid, that childcare is affordable in every single part of this country without regard to your income or your zip code, that we have pre-K universal in the United States of America because we know that's an investment that pays handsomely over the lifetime of the beneficiaries and the children, and that healthcare is not a function of privilege or luck or circumstances, but is a basic human right upon which every single child and woman and man in this country can depend. So we will follow the lead that these unions have set to make sure that instead of investing in corporations and special interests, we're investing in people and communities and neighborhoods. When we do that, this economy in our country will truly work for every single one of us, and every single one of our kids will see a future for themselves, which means that this great democracy, the United States of America, will continue to have a future as the greatest country on the face of the planet.
I'll choke you.
Got you.
I've been choked up since the last inauguration. Wait. Okay, all better, all better. We have a question from Cynthia, a life science teacher from Washington. She asks, what is your stand on charter schools and vouchers? And what are you going to do to make sure that public education funding is strictly used for public education?
Great question, Cynthia. So, Cynthia, Amy and I are the parents of 12-year-old boy Ulysses, his sister Molly, who just turned 11, and Henry, who is 8 years old. And they all go to world-class dual-language public schools in El Paso, Texas, getting an absolutely terrific education. So I want to make clear in the way that we walk the talk that our belief is in public schools and public education. In my administration, I want to dramatically increase the funding for public education. For example, paying the full freight of the federal obligation for IDEA funding, $20 billion a year. Having a permanent fund for public education, $500 billion that will be invested to alleviate and erase the disparity between minority-majority schools and school districts and white-majority schools and school districts in this country. We're gonna make sure that we invest in educator training, so national certification, our administration will pay for that for every educator who wants to avail themselves of that. And we will ensure that we expand the master teacher program so that those who invested so much of their lives in service to this country through those children that they've served in those schools can also help to teach and mentor the next generation of educators. And I will tell you this, not only do I, as a Democrat, not only do you understand that not a single dime of our public tax dollars can go to vouchers and private schools in this country. But when we were in small town in Texas, Henrietta, Texas, listening to a Republican school teacher, she told me, Beto, if you let Betsy DeVos take my public tax dollars, turn them into vouchers and send them to a private school, I will hunt you down, I will find you, and I will hold you accountable. Which tells me that Republican, Independent, or Democrat, we all believe in public schools. There is a place for public, nonprofit charter schools, but private charter schools and voucher programs, not a single dime in my administration will go to them. We will fully fund public education and public educators and make sure that we have a world-class system of public education in the United States of America. We are going to have your back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you, Congressman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
been
you
an
so
honor.
much. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.